Hey art nerds, good morning. It is day one of Inktober. This is the sketch I created last night, kind of following my Lilliputian world building prompts. And these are house Lilliputians. You guys will be able to see the finished piece as well as the entire prompt that will go in this year's zine over on my Instagram at instagram.com/natosoup. But today I wanted to share my inkwash / inking technique, the process with you guys. This is day one, so I'm still kind of hammering out some issues. Yesterday I showed you guys my materials, and I also demonstrated how to make 2 Inkwash brush pens as well as how I plan on using them. I also did a couple of sketches and showed you how it will look when it's finished. So really today it's all about putting it together. So I am starting my Inktober off with a darker skin couple, and the thing I want to start with is I want to start with their skin tones, because I feel like this is kind of the area where I'm going to need to spend a lot of time and a lot of care in order to make it look as good as I can. So I am applying a little bit of my lighter Inkwash solution to my impermeable craft mat. And the first thing I'm going to try to do, we'll see how good this turns out, is I'm going to try, it's leaky this morning. I'm going to try to do kind of an overall sort of skin tone, like a base skin tone that I can start from. Because I have a tendency when I do skin tones starting from white, I have a tendency to stay way too light. And it is okay to go all the way to white if you need to. So I might leave like the top of her nose white, for example, but I definitely want to kind of blend that. And my tip for doing it like this is just to kind of work in discrete patches if you can. And Inkwash, like watercolor, usually dries a little bit lighter than what you put down. And those of you who are repeat watchers probably know that I'm not the biggest fan of water brushes. I always kind of struggle to use them. Once I've established my skin tone value, I'm going to do, or skin tones values, I'm going to kind of do everything relative to that. Alright, so that is the base skin tone for her. scoot over and do the base skin tone for him. Ooh, that might be a little dark. Just in that I may not be able to see my blue lines through it. Alright, that is both parents colored. Next, I'm going to do the twins. And that's mostly just their little faces. Okay, so I'm going to let everybody dry, and then I'm going to do a layer of shading on their faces. Alright, skin layer 2, electric boogaloo. I think this time I'm just going to blend out on the page now that we've kind of gotten our first layer established. And because I have hot little hands, my water brush wants to just get super leaky all over the place with me. So learning to do the domino mask, which is kind of what she's got going on around her eyes, has been a really big help in sort of how I render faces, especially in like Inkwash and watercolor. I'm probably gonna need to go over that area again. See if I can't do it slightly delicately. Probably not. Oh, probably not. It's okay. We're doing Inkwash after all. That means weird inky blob effects are a thing that can happen. I feel bad, cute couple. You're my first, and therefore I will probably make really silly mistakes on you. But that's alright, because learning to be an artist, learning how to make art, learning how to do comic stuff, learning how to do illustration, anything like that, there's always a learning curve. And we just have to kind of accept that we're humans and things don't always go perfectly. And that is really hard for me to accept sometimes, because I'd gotten it into my head that no one was ever going to be interested in my art until it was perfect. And it will never be perfect. It will be good enough. It will be pretty, but it will never be perfect. So now I'm just trying to get away from like that need for perfection, because I'll never be the sort of good as an artist who my perfect will look good. My perfect will always kind of look a little impersonal, and I'd rather it look like a person drew it, mistakes and all, than a robot drew it or a machine drew it, or, you know, bad CG did it. Not CG, like a neural network. That's the word I wanted. Like those anime girl neural network generators. Oh my goodness. So I just gotta embrace what I make and love it as my baby, because I've invested enough time into it. And I know for the rest of Inktober I will not be able to devote this kind of time to any of my other inked pieces. So I gotta enjoy it and figure it out now while I can. She's looking pretty good. That's another thing, like when you beat yourself up trying to get things perfect, often you don't love your work the way it is, so you're never satisfied. There is definitely a good enough point. Okay, domino mask on him. And stop squeezing the pen, Becca. Enough ink is coming out. You certainly don't need more. And I'm definitely going to go with kind of harsher shadows on him. Just because male faces have more planes on them. Usually. I mean, definitely there are people with... There are guys with soft faces. There are ladies with angular faces. There's folks of all stripes everywhere in between. So, that is not my intention to discredit or take away from anybody who is in the, you know, in the in-between. maybe I should not have done that. Oh well, that's okay. We'll look at it when it's dry and decide from there. It's another thing. I'm gonna be inking with like black ink on top of this, so some of these things I can tighten up. I just need to like not lose the underlying structure and I should be good. You get to do the babies. So pooled ink will always take longer to dry than flat ink. You can use, if you're delicate and you don't have shaky hands, you can use a paper towel to kind of dab up the excess ink. I have shaky hands, so it's always exciting to see whether or not I can get it to work out. Often the answer is no, I can't get it to work out. Ooh, it's a little darker than I wanted. So what I do off camera is I have a paper towel and I just kind of dab off the excess water and the excess ink onto there. And sometimes that's enough, sometimes that's not enough. It's okay. All about learning to roll with the punches. Alright, I'm going to let this baby dry, then I'll go back in and shade them. Now I need a really light to shade their eyes. As well as I think her necklace and her dirndl top. And I may have to go off camera to do the details on his face because they're pretty fine. And I have a little bit of trouble seeing them. Alright, I think I'm going to start blocking in some of the larger forms with just one or the other. And that way I can kind of get a feel for like the contrast that I'm going to be using in this piece. My intention wasn't to get overly fussy with like developing tones and stuff. I think it's important for skin tones, that's why I spent the time doing it, but like in general, my intention for Inktober is just to do some stuff with Inkwash. I don't normally do a whole lot with Inkwash, and when I do, it's usually with like a watercolor Inkwash. So I just wanted a chance to kind of play around with a different medium, and also kind of figure out a way for me to do it while I'm traveling. So even if the brush pins aren't like a perfect solution, they're a good start. And last year I did it in just straight black and white. So, man, this one is so leaky. some reason this is also lightening up. I wonder if all of the pigment that I put in yesterday kind of sinks to the top so it gets consumed faster. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to need kind of a mid-tone for his jacket. I'll use the lighter tone for his pants. I think though everything's just going to kind of end up, unfortunately, more like towards the darker end of medium, which is a little frustrating. It's not really what I wanted. I probably should have aimed for lighter with their clothes, but I'm still kind of getting used to these homemade brush pens. Next time I mix the light, I'll probably go really light because it's still too dark. They're both too close in terms of value. But you know what? It's good. it's really good practice. And also it's like really inconsistent because look, it gets really light over here. So I'm going to either need to learn how to work with that and just be okay with it, or I'm going to have to remix it. I probably should have spent time doing a pre-Inktober illustration yesterday, but honestly, I was a busy gal and I was out all day, so. What I want to get is a bit of wet in and wet blending. Without tearing this paper up. So I should go light on her pants and dark on her, the top. It's like a dirndl top. And I probably shouldn't forget that I do actually have white as a value that I can use. So something I recommend you do if you're aiming for like consistent Inktober illustrations, like you have a style and you want to do 31 illustrations in that style, is time yourself on the first one. You will get faster. But if you have to travel, if you have like work deadlines, just anything that kind of disrupts the ability to like take two hours out of your day and just ink, then knowing how long it takes you to ink with no interruptions is really helpful. I'm kind of sort of doing that by recording this and not time-lapsing it, but it also, when I'm talking to the camera, it messes up my ability to ink, first of all, and it also, it just makes everything take a little bit longer because I'm thinking about how to explain it, I'm stopping and checking the camera, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing isn't really a true method of checking. But it will give me kind of a ballpark of how much time I've spent. Found an area on her shirt that I completely missed. Oh, that's going to be too dark. Also, when I'm recording, it makes it a lot harder if I'm recording on my phone like I'm doing now. It makes it a lot harder for me to kind of get into what I'm doing because I constantly have to stop and check and make sure my phone hasn't run out of time. My phone, for some reason, has decided that 10-minute increments are really all I'm allowed to record. So that's fun. Oh, that's a little too dark. Oh, we'll just deal with it. I wanted something a little bit looser. Partially because her shirt and his shirt are too similar in color. Also wanted to do her pants really light. So I do know that I can't really afford to spend this much time on every piece, right? So I'm going to have to be strategic about what days I can afford to just like geek out over Inktober and do like lots of lavish, I say lavish, but more rendered ink work. I'm also going to have to work on kind of loosening up because I am working way too tight. Especially because I'm going to ink over this, so it's better if I kind of loosen up. I also really like the wet into wet blending that I'm getting, so in the future that's a direction I definitely kind of want to push more in. So this is all a good opportunity to kind of take stock about what I like, what I don't like, what I want to use in future Inktober pieces. I'm leaving a lot of like white halos, and I'm a little bit sloppy. I feel like I'm okay with that. I'm sure I'll see somebody else's really beautiful Inktober piece and be like, oh, I should have gone tighter, ooh, but you know what, whatever. Like, I'm trying to work within my own boundaries, and I need to respect that. That's something else I recommend to those of you who are new to Inktober is respect your own boundaries. You know, if you don't normally do Inkwash, if you don't normally do watercolor, or whatever medium you're choosing to do for Inktober this year, if that's a new medium to you, or if you have time restrictions, or you just don't really want to spend like 4 hours rendering a piece because you've got other things you need to do, you need to be respectful to yourself that that was something you'd never really signed up for. I mean, conversely though, if like you've decided that this year you're going to use Inktober to build your portfolio and you need 31 good pieces, then, you know, you should also honor like your decision to do that and put the time in. And just because some people can crank stuff out fast doesn't mean you need to crank stuff out fast. And that's even if you're participating at all. You don't have to. This is not mandatory. Your participation in Inktober doesn't make you a better artist unless, you know, you use that time to practice or whatever. You put that to good use. But like whether or not you participate doesn't, that isn't like the mark of a good artist, right? Like it's not every good artist must participate in Inktober, whether they even like ink or not. Okay, like it's not that kind of a thing unless your teacher's like you have to do it because I'm grading you on it. I'm not telling you to like just pointlessly rebel. But I also like for some reason this is like the year of anxiety. I'm seeing a lot of people get really anxious on Twitter and really anxious on YouTube about Inktober and really like stress out about it. And like I've been doing this for several years. This is the first, last year was the first year I actually saw anybody stressed out about it at all. I mean, usually it's like whatever you can knock out on top of your normal workload, you know, like maybe some people are getting sponsorships or something, I don't know, or like their teachers are assigning it, whatever. I'm just trying to think of like how someone could dedicate like 8 hours in their day to doing an Inktober piece. But like if you got the time to do it, do it, if that's what you want to do. I'm just not into seeing people like really stress out about it because it ends up turning into these really dumb arguments that like I kind of feel like nobody's arguing, and I don't like contributing to that kind of discourse because it's like there's no point. That doesn't make the art community any better or any stronger. It doesn't make anybody a better artist. It doesn't inspire anyone. It doesn't encourage anyone, and it just wears me the heck out. So I didn't want to do that this year. I didn't do it last year, so I'm not going to do it this year. But I just want to let you guys know that just because I'm doing it doesn't mean you have to. I encourage you to try it if you think it looks like fun and if you've got the time to do it. But I don't want anybody to like make themselves sick over something or, you know, get so jealous that they get discouraged and it like wrecks the rest of their year. Because like a lot of us suffer from seasonal affective disorder. So we've got to like reserve something for the rest of the year. And like whether or not other people notice or care about what you're doing, you know, that can't be the reason you're doing it, because you're just always going to be kind of disappointed by that. So just, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you've got the time to do it and you want to do it, that's great. If you don't have the time to do it and you want to do it, I'm sure there's something you can do to follow along in some capacity that's reasonable for what you have to offer. That's also why I keep pointing out, you know, I probably won't be able to do this like this all month long, is because I want you guys to to see reasonable expectations. I don't want you to get bullied or pressured or guilted into, like, you know, something you can't do and then you feel really terrible about it. I'm not a proponent of, like, the good vibes only club. I think that's ridiculous and unreasonable, but, like, I'm also not a proponent of, like, let's make ourselves sick for no reason. And, like, for real, Inktober is one of those no reasons. Don't make yourself sick. Just do stuff you like, work as loose or as tight as you like, get sketchy, get sloppy, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry, clean up my work area, and then I'm gonna come back to it. Alright, so this has had a chance to dry. These are going to be the main tools of my inking trade, but I'm also going to pull out some white gouache, so I should go grab that. So I think the first thing I want to do is I think I'm going to start with the white highlights, because why not? And I am using Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. That and white gouache are two big faves for doing white corrections. Although I'm mostly just going to use it to do kind of highlights. In this way, I can actually ink over it if I want to. And I think I say this for all types of media that I work on, like from watercolor to inks to markers, that this, when I'm adding white corrections, is always my favorite stage, even if I'm going to ink over it. And I think it's just because it really starts coming together a little bit more. Also, like, if I mess up when I'm inking, I usually can't correct it because I'm doing it for markers or I'm doing it for watercolor, and it has to wait until, you know, everything else is done. So I'm sitting with these flaws for like the majority of the piece, and they're driving me nuts. Like, I try to pretend for you guys like I don't care, it's fine, but of course it drives me nuts because I'm like sitting there with an obvious mistake for a significant portion of my piece. But I know that if I wait, it'll either kind of visually disappear, or it'll quit being important, or I'll be able to correct it towards the end. So I just try to think about that, because often with these sort of white correctional whatevers, gouache, white signal, whatever you choose to use to correct, often they leave a very obvious mark if you try to like watercolor over them. So it's really, I think it's better to wait. Okay, I think this is kind of it until I add my inks. Alright, so I have here a Pentel Pigment brush pen. And what I liked about this last year is that it gave like really nice dry brush. And I used the heck out of it for last year's Inktober. And I will pop a link to where that started last year on Instagram for me, because I did these really cute world building prompts as well, and then I kind of turned it into like a little storybook. So if you like my art, or if you like tiny people stuff, that might be your jam. I actually have the zines for sale, not on my site, but I sell them at shows. So if you see me and that's something you are interested in, you should definitely come and check it out and chat me up. Let me know how much you like it. Like I said, I'm still kind of figuring out how I want my Inkwash stuff to look. Also kind of contending with the fact that the paper wants to buckle just a little bit. It's not too bad considering this isn't a watercolor paper. And I'm not really proficient enough to ink the whole thing with this thing. I'm sure I should try it sometime, just so that, you know, I can have tried it. Especially because for some reason this fall my hand's gotten really shaky. So I'm just kind of doing the rough outlines, I guess. So like darker areas, that sort of thing. I love this thing though, just because my hand is too shaky to really make best use of it. I definitely think someone with, you know, better current hand control could definitely use this to ink their whole piece, especially if you have kind of like a looser style or you're looking for like a dry brush on the go. This thing can be great. And I really value the dry brush look because my work, like I said earlier, tends to get kind of an antiseptic look to it. And the dry brush kind of adds some personality to it. This is also a good opportunity if, you know, your contrast isn't quite right. And that can be really hard. At least it's hard for me in Inkwash to make sure that I have enough contrast in my piece. This can be a good opportunity to add some because like the black on top of this dark, it's like a really nice warm gray, which I think suits Lilliputian living really well. Maybe it doesn't suit the blue pencil. Maybe I should have gone for red like I kind of experimented with yesterday. But, you know, that's okay. I'm going to stick with 1 for all of Inktober. Just because I want my end piece to be really consistent. And it's going to make it easier for me to digitize if it's consistent, because then I can just kind of do the same action over and over again. So I'll make it a lot easier to turn into a zine. And you know, I know, and I've said it like a million times, so I know you guys know I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but like, I know not everybody can or wants to participate in Inktober or, you know, some other fall themed event. I mean, I did Mermaid this year as well, and I only did like, no, I did a little more than 14 pieces, but I didn't do a full month of Mermaid. I kind of just did as many as I was capable of doing, right? So, like, if you can't participate, it doesn't make you any less of an artist, but, you know, you should definitely still cheer other people on, I think. And I think that's, like, a really good way to also participate, because a lot of people complain about, like, you know, nobody cares, or, you know, I'm spending all this time doing all these ink pieces and nobody cares. Well, like, okay, first of all, if you're doing it for other people to care, then you're doing it for the wrong. You're not going to get what you want out of it. But, you know, there's also a great gap in between, like, the people who, how do I put this? There's just, we need more cheerleaders. We need more support staff. We need more people who go through and look at pieces and are like, I love this. And every year, as part of my Inktober participation, I do try to make sure I encourage other people. I tell other people how much I like their pieces, stuff like that. That's part of my Inktober is, you know, talking to other people about it. And I think it should be, even if you are participating, I think that should be part of your Inktober too. Like, we all should give one another the accolades and the love we wish to give. And I kind of feel like you don't have a foot to stand on if you're complaining, if you don't actively try and, like, solve the problem for others, you know, if you don't actually actively go out and engage others. And I get, like, so many people are like, oh, but I'm too shy. I think it cut out. But definitely it's needed to have people as support staff, as cheerleaders, you know, I wouldn't have continued drawing comics. Well, I probably would have continued drawing comics, but I certainly wouldn't share them online because that's effort. I wouldn't do the things I do if it wasn't for the people who support me and the people who encourage me and the people who enjoy my art. So, like, you know, I definitely know firsthand how important it is to have that in your life. So, if you don't have time to ink, that's cool. Nobody's judging you. And everybody would, not everybody, because, you know, there's always some ungrateful people. But I think it would mean a lot to some people if you also took that time, or took like 2 minutes every day to, like, you know, tell other people how much you enjoy their art. Because that's what being in a community is about, is like the give and the take. And, you know, some people only take and some people try to give a lot. So, I don't know. But, like, otherwise, I think any way you choose to participate or not participate is valid. I respect the people who are like, I just can't this year, like, I really can't, it's gonna give me anxiety, I don't have the time for it. Like, that's cool, I get it, I dig it. I respect the people who are like, I'm gonna drop this other thing that doesn't bring me any joy, that makes me upset, that breaks my heart, I'm gonna just focus on making pretty art. Like, that's one of the things I'm gonna be doing this Inktober, is I'm gonna be dropping some dead weight and just focusing on the stuff I like for a while. I ended up using this pigment brush a lot more than I said I was going to, but I really like the chunky dry brush lines, kind of juxtaposed with the loose, kind of sloppy Inkwash. Plus, I'm always one of those artists who really needs to work on, like, getting a little looser. So, this could be good. It's certainly different from a lot of my normal stuff, so that's, you know, also could be good. So I think I'm kind of at the point where I need to A, charge my recording device because it probably wants to die, and B, maybe switch over to the finer thing in life, my smaller of my inking utensils. and that way I can kind of get in there and do the face. Okay, so I fudged a little. I ended up inking a lot with all sorts of things. I went back in with the Pentel and did most of my inking with that. I add a little bit darker ink wash, etc., etc. But you guys kind of get the gist, so I'm not that concerned about it. The only thing I haven't really done is I haven't really done a lot of inking on the faces. So I'm just going to finish that up. I always think doing tight inks on the faces and just going in here and there and adding tight inks where necessary can really help just make the piece feel finished. And I love doing things that are kind of a combination of really loose and sketchy and really tight. I don't know, there's something, it's like bringing order out of chaos, you know, like there's something really satisfying about being able to do that. Okay, so other than I think adding a few white highlights, mostly to his shirt, I think I'm done for today. And this would be Inktober Day 1. House Lilliputian would be the prompt. So these are Lilliputians who live in people's homes but don't necessarily live near other Lilliputians. So it's kind of a single family kind of thing. So Kara's family would be considered house Lilliputians because they live in proximity And then I'll just blend that out just a little bit. But yeah, that's Inktober day 1. Glad to have one of 31 done at least. And we'll see how my month progresses. We'll see if, you know, how I choose to lighten up, how I choose to change things so that it's a little more sustainable. Obviously I can't do every day like this, but I definitely needed a break from painting Cara pages, and I thought it would be just kind of fun to do something a little different. I definitely do want to keep doing Inkwash, but I will probably remix my Inkwash because it's just too dark. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, useful, and informative for you guys. I hope it was inspiring for some of you, especially for those of you who would like to participate, but, you know, time just isn't on your side. It's just not in your cards. It doesn't make you any less of an artist, but you can be a real art angel if you just take some time out of your day and comment on people who are participating this year. Be a source of inspiration. Let people know that you see what they're doing and you like what they're doing. And I'll try to do the same from my end to inspire and encourage other people as much as I can, as much as I have energy for it. It's not something I would recommend you get burnt out doing. It's not worth it. So, I mean, you know what I mean. Like stressing out over Inktober or stressing out over having to compliment people. Like, try it. If it's really, really painful for you, if you really don't like the results, you can quit. You're not tied to it. You don't have to do it forever. But I would like to see people try. And then when it does get to be too much, if it ever gets to be too much, you can quit. You can quit, and I will be super proud of you for having tried something different, gotten out of your comfort zone, talked to some new people, and been a source of inspiration and encouragement to others. Because that is a wonderful gift that you can give other people, is just to be there for them in the background. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today for our first day of Inktober. I'm also going to work on my sketch for tomorrow a little bit later on. So thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys again really soon. Oh, and if you want to follow along with this year's Inktober, make sure you follow me on Instagram at instagram.com/nidasoup. Bye guys!